I'm in jail, and jail is a treadmill. Although the snow has mostly stopped, it's been 20 below for the past 2 weeks, which is well below my cutoff for cold weather running. So I've been stuck indoors. In this video, I'll be covering my training for the Vancouver Marathon, but I also want to answer the question, is the treadmill really that bad? Hey guys, if you're new here, my name is Eric. I'm a hobbyist runner from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and weeks 3 and 4 have had mileages of 89 and 96k respectively. It also marks the end of this plan's preparatory phase, and there would be one hell of a workout waiting for me at the end of it. Not to belabor the point, but ideally I would have liked to have done some of this outside and not on the treadmill, which is of course the bane of every runner's existence. But why? Well, it comes down to a few things, but I've shortlisted 4 primary cons, and I've also come with 4 pros because, well, this channel is not meant to be a whinge fest. We're trying to be a little bit constructive here. Con number 1, you're not in the open air, so if you're sweating, you're getting drenched. Even with my ridiculous 4-fan setup, I am definitely not dry by the end of every run, and especially on those harder efforts. I'm not sure how it is at the gym, but I know in the room I keep my treadmill, which is about 8 foot by 12 foot, this thing gets hot. With a high power motor, the deck getting warm, and my own personal body heat, this room climbs easily from 22 degrees Celsius to 27 over the course of a run, which is roughly summer morning temperature for me. Con number 2, the monotony. You might be asking how, because I have an in-flight entertainment system, but trust me, it's not just what's on the screen, it's what's beneath your feet. It's very subtle, but changes in road or trail help keep you mentally engaged because you're not always doing the same motion over and over again. Not to mention, you have random obstacles in pedestrians, dogs, cars, and anything else. Even a loop around your neighborhood is going to have some variance. And again, on the treadmills, exact same course, exact same movement, over and over and over again. And for those easier runs, well, it gets really mentally taxing. And speaking of easy runs, these were the ones on the cards for this week. Nothing too crazy here, with the longest one being 13k with strides. Usually my easy runs top out at about 15k, so this was relatively easy. But given the workouts I had this week, I'm glad these were a little bit easier. And speaking of workouts, the third con to the treadmill is that it's relatively tricky to run an interval session. Of course, a treadmill doesn't start and stop instantly, so for those awkward periods, either you have to run the ramp up and ramp down, which is additional mileage and intensity, or you have to get really good at lifting yourself up and down. I personally prefer the latter, but then again, I don't get heavier than 60 kilos, so this might look different for you. Obviously, it gets less safe the more you have to do it, so for example, in week 3 session, 8 by 3 minutes on at 10 to 5k race pace and 2 minutes off at a jog, that is an example of a moderate risk session. I'm raising and lowering myself every 3 to 2 minutes, so obviously every one of those lifts and lowers represents a point of failure. And it's worth noting that being in this position right here, with my legs awkwardly split, well, that's not exactly comfortable. It's not like you're standing around the track. Comparing that to the session from week 4, which was 3 by 3k on and half marathon race pace with 5 minutes jogging rest in between, well, that one's a lot safer because, well, half marathon pace is nowhere near as fast as 10 to 5k race pace, and, well, 5 minutes jogging rest is a very long time, so my legs are just straight up nowhere near as tired. Both of these sessions went really great, by the way. And while we're talking about safety, I think it is worth mentioning just how dangerous treadmills can be. If you get a leg cramp and you stop on the track, well, you might stumble for a couple steps, you might fall, but no serious harm done. You get that same leg cramp on the treadmill, well, I hope you have a crash pad behind you because, well, you're gonna go flying. Even if you have the safety key, well, your momentum doesn't dissipate instantly, and when it stops, you're still gonna go backwards at however fast you're going. Personally, I use the Jackie Chan lots of boxes method whenever I'm in doubt as to whether or not I can do the session. The fourth con about the treadmill is that there is no air resistance. Yes, you can do the trick where you adjust the treadmill at 1% grade to compensate, but that's a equivalent effort, but it's not the same effort. Air basically acts like a fluid, so if you're on the treadmill, you're not really swimming through it, like you would be if you're running outdoors. When you do the 1% grade trick, all your body knows is you're running on a 1% grade in a windless room. And for reasons I'll get into later, that's actually not a bad thing, and of course, it's not all bad because there are some serious perks to running on a treadmill. Okay, I need to take a break. My brain is mushed right now. The first pro is you don't have to worry about pace. Assuming you have a properly calibrated speed sensor, you just set and forget. No need to constantly look at your watch's pace field. And this came in really clutch for the other sessions in weeks 3 and 4. Week 3 had a 17K run with a 10K progression, starting just lower than gold marathon pace and winding up at around half marathon pace. This one felt tough, yet very much controlled. But that would pale in comparison to week 4. An overall 32-kilometer epic with 16K steady, 13K progression, and the remainder as a cooldown. The 13K progression was from steady pace all the way to just faster than gold marathon pace. Which doesn't sound crazy, but the volume of this run was really something. And I have to say, this one was tough, but I can't imagine doing it outside with all the obstacles, the ice, the puddles, and everything else. Which is the second pro about the treadmill, you never have to go without speed work. When there's snow and ice out there, obviously you don't have traction, you don't have speed, and you're not really getting the same workout. And of course, there is a safety aspect here. With the lack of traction, everyone takes longer to stop. So if you run into a car or bicycle, well, you know, knock on wood, something bad might happen. Not a problem on a treadmill. And circling back to something I said earlier, the third great thing about the treadmill is that you can do incline work. This was clutch during my training for the Mississauga half, which was basically exclusively uphill in the second half. I did so many mile repeats at 6.5% grade because my treadmill couldn't go faster than about 426 per kilometer. And doing that obviously was the difference maker in between me either running a sub 130 or a sub 125. Even that 1% grade is something, because even though it's there to compensate for the lack of air resistance, your legs are still doing a fair bit of climbing. And lastly, there are the mental benefits. Yes, it's monotonous. Yes, it sucks. Yes, I would rather run out in a snowstorm, but at the same time, if you can manage a very tough workout on the treadmill, then race day with your fellow runners and hopefully lots of crowd support will be a fun run by comparison. Alright, enough about the treadmill. I have to hop on one in about 20 minutes anyway. How have weeks 3 and 4 gone? Well, I won't lie, that 32K with a 13K progression was really the first big test. Full disclosure, I was really nervous going into it. I remember just how difficult it was to do this one last summer. And this time around, it was tough, albeit for different reasons, but that is the closest I felt to race day in a very long time, you know, with that heat, past the 32-kilometer, 20-mile wall, and my calves starting to fail, which honestly might be a cue I need to do more work on my calves. But anyways, I still felt really, really good about that run and where I ended up. I had to dig deep, and it definitely was a confidence booster, but that is not a cue to get overconfident. There are still 10 weeks to go before the taper. I've seen the remaining runs on the plan, and let me tell you, they're not gonna be pushovers. If you wanna see what those are and how I do with them and race day, hit subscribe. Also, let me know your thoughts on the treadmill down below in the comments. I think I already know the answer to this one, but let me know anyways. If you made this far into the video, please consider giving it a like, best way to help out the channel. And as always, thank you so much for watching.